Hey guys, it's Mad Friday and welcome to my first tier 10 tank review. Quite a lot of people have been requesting more tank reviews, so here we go. I'm going to give you my best attempt at reviewing the E100. Right, why have I chosen the E100 as my first tier 10 review? Well, first thing, if I had to choose one tank to say, well, if someone said to me, what's your favourite tank in the game? I'm pretty sure I would say the E100. And second reason was, it was my first tier 10. I don't know, most of you, well, when I started playing when I was beta testing, when you first started playing a game you only had a couple of low tier tanks, you looked up the tech trees and I thought, oh, there's a Tiger tank, got to drive a Tiger tank. And once you've got the Tiger, you then want to drive the Tiger too, and then you drive the E75 and finally you get to the E100. And what a beast it is. I love this thing. In the right hands it is an absolute weapon, but in the wrong hands it can just be a big XP pinata for everybody else to feast off. Right, so let's talk about the real tank first. Right, so I expect most of you are aware that this was actually a wartime design. Can you imagine a comet going up against this thing? What a laugh that would be. Well, anyway, in November 1942 the Krupp family suggested to Hitler a design for a 155 ton tank. Yeah, 155 tons. Well, anyway, cut a long story short, in 1944, because the war wasn't going very well for Hitler, he cancelled all of the super heavy tank development, but the E100 development did carry on. However, they only left 3 staff members to carry on building the prototype. So by the time the war ended, the prototype was found by the 751st Field Artillery Battalion of the Yankee Doodle Forces on April the 22nd in a place that I can't pronounce, but I'll give it a go, in Bad Lipsbringer or something like that in Germany, and was subsequently removed by the British Army and scrapped. So there is no living examples of this thing left alive. Right, so what do you guys really need to know about this thing? Well, first off, we'll talk about one of its main plus points, its armour, and it has a lot of it, as you can tell just from looking at it. It's massive. It weighs about 140 odd tons, without equipment I think, and so let's have a look into the armour a bit more in depth. So here's what the Xbox tells you what the armour profile is. Just from looking at it, it's looking pretty good, but there are some hidden weak spots which this doesn't tell you about, but also there's some hidden plus points which this doesn't tell you about either. So what I'm going to do is take you to a different app I use and show the ins and outs of the armour, and also use an armour piercing model to show you what sort of angles you need to keep the tank at to avoid taking damage from other tanks. So let's skip across to that now. Here's a front view of the E100, and as you can see already, it's not quite as simple as they make it out. Right, so we start off with the chassis first. The Xbox tells you the frontal armour on this thing is 200mm thick, which it is, on the upper plate only. But also that upper plate, it's angled at 60 degrees, which gives you an effective thickness of 400mm. So even without angling, that is basically an auto bounce zone for pretty much every tank in the game, maybe bar things like Object 268 with premium ammunition, which has over 400mm pen, but even then it's going to be a chancy shot for them. Right, main weak spot of this tank really is its lower plate, which is only 150mm. But again, this is angled at 50 degrees and it gives you an effective thickness of 233mm without any angling. So still most tier 8 tanks are going to have a job getting through you from the front without any angling, but equals, well, tier 9s, tier 10s, you're going to have to angle a bit, and most of them are going to go through, so you need to try and keep that lower plate hidden as much as you can. And also, if you're facing an E100, the closer you get to the tank itself, that increases the angle you have to fire at against the lower plate, which decreases your chance of penetrating. So lower plate shots against an E100 are best taken at 100 meters or more, and the further you are away, reduces the angle of that lower plate and increases your chance of penetrating. Also from this view we can talk about the front of the turret. Gun mantlet, don't even bother, you're wasting your time and your ammunition, that's all I'm going to say about that one. The front of the turret itself is 250mm thick, and that is angled at 30 degrees, so without any angling of the tank or the turret itself, that is 289mm of effective thickness. But with some premium ammunition you can go through this, even against another E100. Heat ammunition with turret not angled will go through the cheeks, so when you're facing off an enemy, when you're not shooting, angle your turret. That's basically all you need to do to solve that one. Because if you add the angling of the actual turret itself at, what was it, 30 degrees, and if you angle 30 degrees sideways as well, that is going to increase the effective thickness. But I'll show you in the armour piercer in a bit. Right. The top of the turret does have a nice weak spot there. That is the range finding bar, and you've got that nice little pokey out bit as well. But it is a hard shot to make, and notice lately they've been bouncing, so I don't know whether they've actually done something in one of the updates to that thing, but it's still worth a go. But the main weak point on the turret, well, if you're in a tier 8 tank, don't even bother. But at the bottom of the turret, all the way round, there is a kind of a turret ring. It's not really a ring, it's square, but there's no angling on it. You can just see the orange line below the red on the front of the turret. The bottom of the very turret is not angled at all, and that is 245mm thick, so if you've got more than that, you've got a chance of getting through there. But tier 8 tanks, yeah, don't bother. Onto the side armour, right, you can see it's not quite as monstrous as the front of the tank, but the side of the turret is still 150mm angled at 30 degrees, which gives you 173mm with no angling, you know what I mean, turning the turret from round to round. Yeah, but onto the hull armour, this is a bit tricky. The upper hull armour is actually 130mm, but it's covered with 60mm of spaced armour. So yeah, see how thick that is. With angling as well, that is going to be ridiculous. And remember, heat shells, they have trouble with spaced armour, so any heat shell is going to get soaked up completely by that. Right, the middle hull, that is the 120mm quoted. That is also covered by 60mm of spaced armour. So again, heat shells, no chance through there, or heat shells to be honest as well. Right, the lower hull doesn't have any spaced armour, it's still just 120mm, but you do have the tracks as well, and I'm sure they count as 20. And also, as you can see from the armour model, there's no holes in the tracks like some of the tanks have. So you're guaranteed at least 120 and 140mm if I think I'm right about the tracks as well. Onto this tank's weakest point, its ass. Right, so the rear of the chassis is 150mm again. Again, that's angled at 20 degrees, so it gives you 160mm, so if that's angled side to side 30 degrees, yeah, it's going to be quite hard to get through still. Back of the turret though, this is sort of where you're going to be sort of trying to get the shots in. That's 150mm at 20 degrees, so again 160mm, and what you can see is that sort of hexagonal shape, which is actually a circle in the game. That is a weak spot, and if you're a light tank driver, that's pretty much what you're going to have to aim for. I'm going to show you in a minute with the armour piercer. The chances of an AMX 1390 getting through this thing with standard ammunition, and we'll come on to that right now. Right, in some of the comments of the previous videos, a couple of people have asked for help with dealing with top tier tanks. So what I've done here, I've set up the armour piercer modeler. That's obviously the E100, and as you can see on the right, it's been fired at by a VKB with the tier 10 gun, which is the same as the E75 as well, so you can use that as a guide as well. On the bottom is the key. Obviously on the left, the blue is a pierce, red is a bounce, and grey is a, an auto bounce, a ricochet. So with standard AP ammunition, a VKB fully upgraded, or an E75, or something with similar pen, you don't have much chance of going through this thing. As on the front plate, the lower glacis there is a very small area where you might just sneak one in. Also, the weak spot on the turret, that is green, so if you can hit that, maybe. Ignore the bit behind the gun mantlet, because that's pointing out the hole behind the gun mantlet, but you'd have to get through the gun mantlet in the first place. Also, the pretend turret ring, that's orange, so you could potentially have a shot there, but good luck with that. Right, what I'm going to do now is show the same thing, but firing premium APCR ammunition. Right, so same model, same angle, but with premium ammunition this time, and you can see the chances of getting a penetration have raised quite a bit. You're still going to have to be very careful where you aim. There's not much green on there. Orange is a 50-50% chance of getting through, so front of the turret maybe, lower glacis more than likely, but for E100 drivers, you've probably noticed from both of these pictures, your main problem here is going to be your turret weak spot, so maybe wiggling your turret or moving backward and forward would help, and your front drive wheel, but if you're hiding your lower glacis, more than likely you've got the front drive wheel hidden anyway. So that's just another thing you need to keep in your mind when you're tanking this tank. Right, so same deal here, but back to standard ammunition being fired by the VKB. As you can see, a perfectly, 90-degree E100 in front of you, you've got pretty much 100% chance of penetrating. Unless you hit that spaced armour, there's a good chance. I know this is showing a pen pretty much, but in reality, the wrong angle, because your rounds don't fly perfectly straight, remember, they go up before they dip. So depending on your range, stuff like that. Try and avoid the spaced armour, either fire at the turret if it is nicely presented like that, or go through the tracks, and that is all you need to know about the side really. Right, so the back of this thing, I've got it a bit more angled than 30 degrees I think here, about 40 maybe, but as you can see it's not all doom and gloom. The side armour, most of it's a ricochet, the side of the turret is a bounce, the back of the turret is green I'm afraid, so if someone is behind you, they're going to put one through. But if you've got enemies to the front and enemies to the rear, I would suggest you try and reverse side scrape this thing. As you see, the back of the tank is a roughly 50% chance of going through. If you spin your turret round, and also if a medium gets behind you, and you remember this thing's got horrendous track traverse and horrendous turret traverse, so if you don't think you've got any chance of getting the whole round on this thing, just reverse side scrape. It's going to give you the best chance of trying to survive, basically. And that's it, basically. I'm just going to show you one more armour piercing model, and this is again what I said earlier. I'm going to set it up for an AMX 1390, firing at the rear of this thing. So here we go. Let's show you what sort of problems you're going to face, I'm afraid, if you're a light tank driver. Right, light tank drivers. It's probably best not to auto-aim an E100 if you get behind him. As you can see, you're bordering on 50-50% chance of penning with standard rounds, and that's without any angling of the tank whatsoever. Apart from the back of the turret, you can see that weak spot. If you do manage to get behind an E100 and he doesn't turn his turret, you're going to need to aim for that weak spot, and you will be able to go through there pretty reliably. But if you do get behind the E100 and he turns his turret, I would suggest aiming at the rear armour, aiming up as high as you can to reduce the angle of that rear plate. That's enough of that stuff, that's too heavy going really. Too many numbers and angles, and that's a lot to take in, and especially to remember whilst you're on the battlefield. On to something else. E100 is one of the few tier 10s in the game where when you unlock tier 10 you're not quite there. When you first get it, you have the 75's gun. That's not the end of the world. E75's gun, as you know, because you used the E75 before you got it, is a pretty damn decent gun. But I think it's about 68,000 experience to get this one. This is the 150mm cannon, and I'll just grab the stats for you now. Right, the 15cm KWK-44 L38 has only 235 pen and 750 alpha damage with standard rounds. I mean, that alpha damage is really the E100's party piece. But the heat rounds go up to 334, which is decent, and the same alpha damage. And HE rounds 85, which is, yeah, you know, but 950 alpha damage, which is pretty damn decent. The DPM isn't really anything to write home about, it's only 2,346, but obviously you can lift that up a bit with some equipment. Obviously you can, I don't know if you guys realise what the names of these guns mean. The L38 bit, these guns are expressed in multiples barrel dimensions. So an L38 gun, it means the length of it is 38 times 15 centimeters. So it's quite a short gun really compared to its bore size, which leads to quite bad accuracy, 0.40, and quite a long aim time at 2.9 seconds. And at tier 10, yeah, that's pretty bad. You're going to need to use some sort of equipment just to bring that down a bit. We'll go on to equipment right now. Right, so as you'll see in a second, I've done it again. Don't know if you guys watched my recent Cromwell video. I've gone and done all the filming for this review with only one piece of equipment fitted, but this is probably, in my opinion, the most important piece of kit you can put on this thing, the large caliber tank rammer. The reload time, it only does like 3 rounds a minute, so you need that 10% off your reload time. Right, so what else would I put on there? Not camouflage net, not binoculars, maybe coated optics. I mean, this has 400 meters view, base view range, so if you put coated optics on, it is going to be a wicked scout. I would probably go either for gun lane drive or vert stabilizers, one of those two for your middle slot. E100 does like to get hit by artillery a lot, you do become a big target, so if you do get bored of that, you could always put a super heavy sprawl liner on it, that does work. But I think what I had on before I sold some of it, was gun rammer, fence, and the vert stabs, and in my opinion that is the best combo for this tank. But it's up to you guys what you want to use, muck around with it. Definitely the rammer though, yeah, but the other two slots, it's up to you how you like to play really. The last topic I want to talk about is crew skills. This, in my opinion, is totally down to your own personal preference, but I'll show you what I've got, and maybe you can use that information for what you need. Right, so at the minute I'm training off-road driving. The sod stats on this tank are quite bad. The ground resistances are pretty bad, as you can imagine it's a massive tank, so I'm trying to train that up now. I've got Deadeye. This is a big gun, so it's always nice if you can knock out some modules as well while you're doing it and get some crits. Recon and Situational Awareness, they both together I think give you 5% on your view range. So that and Brothers in Arms gives you 10% on your view range, so that's already almost a view range spotting cap. Brothers in Arms also brings up all the other major crew skills, especially the loader, that helps. Gunner, yeah, the gunner, that helps with your aim time, and also the driver because the soft stats are so bad. Mentor, I don't know why I've got that on there really. I'm not a big fan of Mentor, especially when you get up to so many skills because it takes so long. It doesn't 10%, who cares really? I'd rather have a decent skill, so I might change it. And repairs, this is a big old tank. If you get tracked out in the open, artillery will aim at you. And 6th sense, it's always nice to know if you're on the map, and that is my crew skills. Right guys, so we've done all the facts and figures. I'm going to show you a few clips of gameplay now. Hopefully they show you either the best and the worst of the E100 or the best and the worst of my driving. And another clip of also how to deal with a really dangerous tier 10 tank destroyer, and then a couple of clips of how to deal with an E100 in a lower tier tank. Right, so we're on Pearl River. Top tier, that's the best thing about being in a tier 10 tank, you're always top tier. So when you are, and you're up against lower tier tanks, you really need to abuse that advantage. No, it was a bad shot against the Type 61 there, so even against targets like that, you need to be a little bit careful. Right, so I'm just holding position at the minute, because I'm in quite a strong position. My armour is all angled back, so these guys really have no chance whatsoever. See, APCR shot bounced off there. Still holding position, and then I start to take fire from across the valley. So I know I can't stay there, so I know I've got the armour advantage. I'm just going to push in and try and force these guys back. Let's see if we can win this fight. See there, tier 8 medium, almost to him. Left him on a sliver of health, and he's gone. Notice I'm always trying to rock forward and backwards, trying to deny people a clean shot at any weak points. Obviously you can't do it when you're trying to aim, because otherwise it's going to throw your aim off. Pushing in, no time to be a wimp. IS-8, get a shot into him. He's almost down. Hopefully the team will clear him up whilst I'm reloading. Notice when I am reloading, I'm pulling back. It's quite a long reload. There's no point sitting out there taking fire when you really don't have to. There we go, lower plate on a Carnarvon. Or was it a Conqueror? Was it a stock Conqueror or Carnarvon? I don't know. Quite a strong tank that, but even with the low pen of this gun with lower plate shot, even though it's quite inaccurate at that range, we can poke the shots in. Auto aim there. Against stationary targets you can get away with it, but I'll show you in a bit. Moving targets with this gun, definitely not a good idea. See, I'm angling the turret as well between shots. If I know they're going to fire, and if I've got the time, I will angle the turret. And he's got past me, give him a ram, and he's done. E100 is very sluggish uphill, but along flat ground, hard and medium ground, you can get up to 30 km/h speed limit, but on soft ground this thing is very laborious. The wheel throw will like it's bogged in, and you can get flanked quite easily. Right, onto this clip. Again, Conqueror there's a Jagdtiger, very dangerous target, so that was a bad shot from me. That's not the tank's fault, that was completely my fault. Right, so a Jagdtiger. No chance of penning his superstructure with AP rounds, but he's out in the open. You have to let these shots aim in, because if they lift up and hit the upper plate of a Jagdtiger or something like that, it's just going to bounce. Again, pulling back between reloads. Artillery misses. Try and lose your spot between reloads. Conqueror, I snapshot and set him on fire. That's a lot of damage in one shot. Friendly tests out our side armour there, but I'm afraid the spaced armour of this is good enough to block friendly shots as well, mate. So, well done. And I want this kill. I took most of his health. Lower plate again. Let it aim in. Backing off in between shots. It's like, even with equipment, I've only got a ram fitted, but it's still like 15 seconds. There's no point just sitting there getting lit up and letting Artie have a clean shot. Right, here we go. E50. Miss. Track him. Again, that's my fault. On a better day, that would have been a clean lower plate shot for me, but not today. Backing off between shots, very wary of the Artie. He seems to be doing some damage. He obviously knows what he's doing, so I'm giving him the respect he deserves. Object 140, really strong turret apart from that, a little bit poking out. Sorry mate, bye bye. Oh, he's come in, so I'm a bit more brave. Going to push around. Here we go. This thing tends to roll good. You normally get an average roll or above, and sometimes a lower roll, but really it is good for rolls. This is where either I start to do it, or the low traction reverse or the turret reverse catches me out there. So you have this tiniest little gap for me to miss, and it costs me getting a friendly killed. Maybe my fault, maybe I could blame it on the track reverse, I don't know. Right, here we go. Moving target, auto aim, no chance with this tank. Wouldn't even bother trying it. You may get lucky, you never know, but there we go. Right, same match. Fast forwarded a little bit, just to show you how I deal with some situations. Right, so there's an E75 there. He's a tough target, especially with this gun. So the way I'm going to deal with this, there he is. Ram him, take his tracks off, and use the time I've got. Put a nice big shot into his cupola, and hopefully the team will finish him off. So angle there, and he only tracks us, which is good. There we go, the E75 dealt with very quickly. Right, off to the left I have spied a tank destroyer, and it is a Foch 155. Right, you can see the ginormous weak spot of that thing, with 0.4 accuracy and low pen. We get one bounce. This dude's obviously on a reload, so I'm not particularly worried. Especially when I got a friendly in front of me who's just sat there. He manages to pen his weak spot. Another bounce, and they're looking like they're hitting the weak spot, so you can see just how unreliable this gun can be sometimes. Right, here we go. E100 again, obviously. Let's see how I deal with this situation. There's two tier 10 tanks there. There's an FV4202 and another British tank, the tier 10 tank destroyer, the FV183. The biggest non-artillery gun in the game. 4202, I don't know what he's doing. I'm still here, mate. Bye bye. Right, so the Death Star's come around of angle. Boom. Hits me with Hesh. Doesn't do a huge amount of damage. Put my loader back in because I don't really need the commander at this short range. But I do need the reload time to be able to kill this guy before he kills me. So I'm pushing in on him. I can't wait. Get one into his lower plate. I've got to ram the guy. I've got to take enough health off to guarantee my next shot is going to do something, and also maybe to stop him from reversing so far, but the rest of his team have got shots on me. Trying to reload, depending on how good this guy's crew is, he can shoot at me, and he has, but I didn't take too much damage, and I take him down. And we're bouncing shots there from the rest of his team. And that's that situation dealt with. Right. Now how to deal with an E100. I showed you in the armour piercing model an E100 getting fired at by a VKB. And here we go. It's our old friend, Deerslayer 6. He's finally made it to the ranks of tier 10. He's in his E100. I've already got one into the side of him. Showed you in the armour models, the side of an E100 fired at by a fully upgraded VKB. It's pretty much, well, not a guaranteed shot, like I said. If you hit the spaced armour funny, they can bounce, but we've got two in now. Can we make the third before he gets around the hill? No. Like I said at the start of the video, the E100 can either be the best of tanks in the right hands, or it can just be a big XP pinata. There we go, 3 shots in. He's turning, so it's going to be a little bit harder. He's angled slightly. He sees me. Get our 4th shot in. I'm trying to bounce his shots, but I didn't realise what this sort of person does. So in a second, see something. There we go. Shot wasn't quite accurate enough, and it hit the upper plate and bounced straight off, and we saw how ridiculously strong that upper plate is. So I've switched to APCR. I'm going for the lower plate, even angled like that, and we hit him and take his engine out, or crit his engine. And he's a one shot now. But this Jagdtiger's keeping me spotted. It really catches me out. There we go. See the colour of that tracer there? He's firing HE. There we go. Only track him with that shot. I'll take a big hit off the artillery. It's going to make me a bit more cautious. That dude's got the same gun as me, and he's resorting to HE. Right, so I'm turning. Sixth sense is going off and I'm detected. I'm worried that my game is going to end right now with a big artillery splash. Doesn't seem to be coming. So I'm going to go and finish him off. There he is, he's got his turret sideways, perfect shot. E100 down. We took the majority of that guy's health there in a tier 9 tank. Right, this game. It's me and one other versus an E100. I fired an entire clip of AP at him and I managed to get one critical hit. So I've reloaded a clip of APCR and we're going to try again. 5100 has pretty damn good pen for a tier 8, but even with AP I still couldn't get through, even at weak spots. But with APCR against an enemy that isn't really concentrating on you. So basically the moral of the story is, if you're facing an E100 and tier 8 tank, you're going to have to do something about it to get around it. Right, there we go guys, that is my review of the E100. I hope you found it informative. I hope you haven't found it just a load of garbage. I've tried my best. I've tried to give you the information that's sort of you need, the information that's relevant. This thing is great. I can fully recommend you go get it. The armour is amazing when you know how to work, you know how to use it, you know how to angle, you know how to side scrape, you know how to tank properly. As I've showed you, in the wrong hands it can just be a load of garbage, but it's not invincible. You can take this thing down, just a bit of skill, bit of accuracy, the right ammunition choice at the right time, that sort of thing. And it's a tier 10 tank, so when you're top tier and you're up against lower tier tanks, abuse your advantage, use that armour, just get in there. It's a brawling tank, but like I said, long reload time, 15 seconds minimum. Get out of the way while you're not firing, save your health. This thing, if you can keep this thing alive till the end of a game, this is a tank you can pick up your medals in. It is a beast. I love this thing. It's my favourite tank in the game. Won't ever sell it, and I play it quite regularly. Right, cheers guys, thanks for tuning in. Please let me know in the comments what you thought of this review. Please tell me what I could have done better, and for the next tier 10 review I'll try and make it just that bit better for you guys. Right, cheers guys, catch you on the next one.